Things were supposed to be different for the Carolina Panthers last year. And they were. McCaffrey was injured again. Sam Darnold was Sam Darnold again, and their offseason moves have not inspired confidence. The NFC South is a rough division, but things have changed. Drew Brees, gone. Matt Ryan, gone. Tom Brady, gone. Then back. You tease. Now is the time to strike. The Panthers just need a quarterback.
There's not 32 guys better than me.
No. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shut Up Football. I'm Jeff Stoltzfus. That's Kevin. In this episode, we can't shut up about the Carolina Panthers, the best professional football team in all of North Carolina. They don't have an XFL team, do they? We're going to shake this team until something positive falls out of it. So bring all your flashlights and the sun. We're looking at the 2022 Carolina Panthers. There weren't many Panthers on winning fantasy football teams last year, and even though it's June, this roster is still in flux. I expect more fluxing, so hopefully this video won't age like an avocado. And now it's time for a breakdown. Oh, Sam Darnold. I really thought he'd be better last year. And for a month, he was. His fantasy production was pretty good the first 4 weeks, aided in part by 5 rushing touchdowns, and then the wheels fell off. Again. Whether it's his processing or his footwork, it's just Sam Darnold. He's just not a starter in the NFL. The Jets knew it. Now the Panthers know it. He's had more interceptions than touchdowns the last 2 years. Pro Football Focus said Sam Darnold completed only 27.5% of his 20-plus pass yard attempts and ranked last in passer rating. And why is he always making that face? Did somebody post his stats on the Jumbotron? If the Panthers want more from the position, there's no reason to start the season with Sam Darnold again. I know he's still young, but I've seen enough. The Panthers selected Matt Corral out of Ole Miss in the 3rd round. I like Corral. He was my second favorite quarterback in the draft. Not to say I expected him to be a year 1 starter, or even a starter at all, but it sure is a possibility. Corral is accurate. He has a strong arm. He throws lasers. In fact, that was my one knock on him from college. Can he throw with touch and anticipation? I think he can. I just didn't see an abundance of tape with it. He's got good mobility, he can escape the pocket and throw on the run. In time, I think he could stand to add some weight, so those runs don't end with Devin White perforating his thorax. He's either 205 or 212 pounds, depending on where you get your data. Some think Corral's size is an issue, but at 6'2", he's the same height and only a little lighter than Lamar Jackson was coming out of college. Jackson put on weight to handle NFL hits. No reason Corral can't too. Corral has a lot to learn in his rookie year. I don't know when he'll see the field. Is week 2 too soon? Normally I'd like a rookie to sit and develop in year 1, but what's he gonna learn from Sam Darnold? How to get mono? It won't be pretty, but the Panthers might as well throw him out there and see what happens. PJ Walker is the backup, and he's a decent one. He played in the XFL. Last year he won 2 games for the Panthers. I can't escape here without mentioning Baker Mayfield and Jimmy Garoppolo, neither of which are on the team right now. But come August? Who knows? It's rumored that the Panthers were interested in Mayfield, but unwilling to swallow so much of his contract. And that makes sense. Mayfield would be an immediate upgrade for the Panthers. I'd start him, but why take on that contract? The Browns are just as likely to cut him. Are you afraid someone else will scoop him up? Who needs him more than the Panthers? I think Mayfield would still just be a rental. Just a better one. I wouldn't take Sam Darnold in any format. There are 31 other quarterbacks I'd rather roster. No reason to take Matt Corral in redraft, but it's worth rolling the dice on him in Dynasty. Sure, they could draft somebody higher next year, but I assume if you draft him in Dynasty, it's not because you need him to play this year. It's a luxury. You can afford to see how this plays out. Maybe you've got Tom Brady or some other 44-year-old quarterback with 7 rings that won't eat tomatoes. If you like football and you know it, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Click the video. Like the video. Do something with the video. Find the video. Become the video. But if you can't stand my big dumb face and want to punish me, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'll take subscriptions founded on spite. I don't give a fuck. Christian McCaffrey wins you football games. He wins you fantasy football games. He's an absolute beast on the ground and in the passing game. Per Pro Football Focus, no running back in the history of professional football has averaged more PPR points per game than McCaffrey. His ability is not in doubt. His availability is. McCaffrey's injuries have caused him to miss a lot of games. Last year, he was in and out of the lineup. In the last 2 years, he's seen a multitude of injuries. At this point, playing a full season would be a surprise. The only threat to his volume is load management. The Panthers added D'Onta Foreman in free agency. Foreman came out of Texas, drafted by the Texans in the 3rd round of the 2017 draft. He looked like he would succeed Lamar Miller there. But then, Foreman suffered a non-contact injury. He tore his Achilles, out for the year. 2 years later, he was waived by the Texans for poor work habits and being late to meetings. He bounced between the Colts, the Titans, the Falcons, then back to the Titans again. Last year, he rose from the practice squad after Derrick Henry suffered a Jones fracture in Week 8. Foreman had 3 100-yard-plus games and finished with over 500 yards on the year. He's 6 foot, 233 pounds. He's a beef wagon. If they were looking for a pounder to wear down a defense and make life a little easier for McCaffrey, Foreman fits the bill. Chuba Hubbard was selected in the 4th round last year. Oh, people were excited! But I was skeptical. Not about his long speed. He's got it. I just wasn't sold on some of his other traits. Or lack thereof. But I was alone. The fantasy community was horny for Chuba. He was drafted to a great situation, and when McCaffrey fell victim to the boo-boos again, opportunity fell in Chuba's lap like a stripper the night before rent is due. Chuba's time had come. Chuba, it's just fun to say. Chuba, Chuba, Chuba. Are you talking about Chuba? So how did Chuba Hubbard do? Okay. He was okay. He had average points for the position in 4 games and disappointed in the rest. He finished with 5 touchdowns. His yards per carry vacillated between very good and dear God no, that's gross. I know he has ability, but I wasn't sold on him coming out of college. I wasn't impressed with his rookie season, and I'll buy it only after I see it in the NFL. I don't mind being late for this party. So which one is McCaffrey's handcuff? I'm going Foreman. It's just a guess, but to add some out-of-context data, last year Foreman averaged 4.3 yards per carry, whereas Chuba Hubbard averaged only 3.6. And sure, that's cherry picking. They were on different teams playing behind different lines, but it's also true. The rest of the running back room is Spencer Brown and Darius Bradwell, both undrafted free agents. Neither is anything more than depth. Obviously, take Christian McCaffrey in all formats. He's worth the injury risk. Just make sure you have solid depth behind him. I would take D'Onta Foreman late in Redraft and Dynasty. I think he has some standalone value even with a healthy McCaffrey. Not as a starter, but as a handcuff that can occasionally power his way across the goal line. I would not invest in Chuba Hubbard anywhere. If C-Mac is healthy, he won't see the field enough to merit his roster spot on your fantasy team. Even if McCaffrey gets injured, I'd expect Foreman and Hubbard to split the load. I don't see how he improves his production from his rookie year with only half the carries. You could stash him in Dynasty, but I wouldn't. There are simply too many things that need to happen for him. McCaffrey would need to get injured, Foreman would need to disappoint or get injured, and Hubbard would need to take a year 2 leap. I'd rather see the path and the proof play out first, and then pay up for him later. No need to clog my roster with hope. Stupid hope and its magical whimsy. Free DJ Moore! That's what the kids say. His entire NFL career, he's been saddled with a Brown-style list of subpar passers. Poor bastard just wants to catch the football and dance! Actually, he's done pretty well, considering the revolving door of failure that's been flinging balls at him. He's crossed 1,000 yards in the past 3 seasons, and he's only 25 years old. Still plenty of career left. He just needs to find the one. Maybe he needs to start speed dating at the combine. Dress sexy, DJ. This summer, Robbie Anderson tweeted he was thinking about retiring, and thinking was capitalized, so you know it was serious thinking. Like when you have to decide whether or not to use a porta potty. Sure, you gotta go, but you know there's a bowl of stranger poop on the other side of that door just waiting for you. Robbie Anderson has had a rough career. He went undrafted in 2016. He's repeatedly been struck by lightning, I assume, based on every picture I've ever seen of him. He climbs an NFL depth chart and then gets Sam Darnold as his quarterback. So he escapes from New York, and what does he find when he gets to Carolina? Goddamn, Sam Darnold snuck inside his carry-on. Of course he thought about retirement. Ben McAdoo's playbook is thick as the printed internet. Now Robbie's got to study? Okay, Robbie's back. Last year, he barely banked 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was the second most targeted receiver on the team, but he failed to record even one 100-yard game. He played in all 17 games last year, though. That's nice. And he's still on the right side of 30. Terrace Marshall Jr. was drafted out of LSU in the second round last year. 6'2", 205 pounds with 4.4 speed. There was everything to like about this guy. He was being drafted at the back end of the first in rookie drafts, and then, yikes. 7th on the team in targets behind 2 running backs and 2 tight ends. Where you at, Terrace? Why so few targets? Or better question is, why was he a healthy scratch in week 12? The fan base and fantasy managers were pounding the table for Marshall's involvement, but there's usually a reason someone doesn't get playing time. I had a really hard time forming an opinion about him going into year 2. He's so polarizing. People either think now's the best time to buy or sell him as fast as you can. So, first the good. With the few targets he got, he looked good. They weren't huge plays, but he caught the ball, and that's always a plus. He made some good moves and picked up some decent yards after the catch. Even when there wasn't much there, he got the most of it. Now the bad. Though I couldn't find the tape to support it, some said he had trouble separating. With his speed, that seems a tough pill to swallow, but maybe it was a technique issue. He has been called a raw prospect, and he was only 21 years old last year. Could be he just needed some time to develop. Another possibility is he's not a good blocker. That I actually saw. Some coaches are pretty rigid about that. If you're not a good blocker, you just don't see the field. If he simply needs refinement in the non-pass catchy portion of his game, there's reason for optimism. Coach Matt Corral says Terrace Marshall has been showing up at the facility at 5:30 a.m. every day. This means he's either Amish, a rooster, or putting in the time and effort to improve. Shi Smith was selected out of South Carolina in the 6th round last year. He's 5'9", a $186, and ran 4.46 at his pro day. He's fast. He's good. He actually got on the field as a rookie last year. There's just a couple of problems with Shi. One, he's competing for the slot role. That means directly competing with Terrace Marshall. And 2, I told you he was fast. Rashard Higgins was added in free agency and has been useful at times. And Brandon Zylstra, who had one good game last year, and it's unlikely you even remember that. Lastly, we have Keith Kirkwood, Andre Roberts, C.J. Saunders, Rashawn Henry, Andrew Parchment, and Derek Wright. Keith Kirkwood has the most value here. He's basically store-brand Robbie Anderson, but he's nearly 30. None of these guys is ever likely to contribute, but I'll give you a different name to watch. How about undrafted Charleston Rambo out of Miami? DJ Moore in all formats. I don't recommend Robbie Anderson, not even in best ball. Currently, this team can't sustain multiple receivers for fantasy. I think Terrace Marshall will improve this year, but the same logic applies here. I'm not taking him in redraft or best ball. In Dynasty, just hold. Don't realize those losses and sell. And don't buy just because of the discount. Best case scenario, he's the number 2 receiver in a year with Matt Corral or rookie. Worst case, he's Denzel Mims. You want to stash Shi Smith in Dynasty? Man, what are you smoking? This ought to be short. Last year, the Panthers rotated tight ends. Ian Thomas was the vet and the presumed starter, I guess. Tommy Tremble was drafted out of Notre Dame in the 3rd round. He's 6'3" and has good speed. But also, who cares? This is Carolina. Last year, the Panthers targeted the tight end position 31st of 32 teams. Individually, neither Tremble nor Thomas cracked the top 45 in fantasy points at the position. Combine them like the least animated version of Voltron, and they still didn't crack the top 25. I don't want a 50% stake in a position targeted near least in the NFL. Not in this economy. Brian Burns was top 10 in fantasy points for defensive end spot last year. For the D-line as a whole, he was just outside the top 10. Invest in Brian Burns for IDP. Last year was not a fluke. He's legit, and he's only 24 years old. On the other side of the line is Yetur Gross-Matos. He hasn't been an IDP darling, at least not yet. But he's also filled with potential and just 24 years old. He's someone to add to your watch list. There are a ton of question marks surrounding the linebacking core. Shaq Thompson is an experienced vet, but I don't think I'd want him in my IDP lineup. The team selected Brandon Smith out of Penn State in the 4th. He is an athletic freak, the most athletically gifted linebacker to come out of college in the last 25 years. Those aren't my words. That's literally how he was described. But he's not just athleticism. He's a thumper. Everyone he tackles, it looks like a bag of hammers was shot at them from a cannon. They go down hard, and while they're down, they reconsider every moment that brought them to such pain. Unfortunately, there's no indication he's taking a major role anytime soon. The word is he's extremely raw. Mentally, he's got a lot to learn. So, he's not worth a roster spot yet, but keep an eye on his development. If he can someday snag the middle linebacker role here, it would be very valuable. Jeremy Chin was a top 10 safety in IDP last year, as was Xavier Woods, who they just added in free agency. Despite being on the same team, I'd say roster either one. There's not a lot to love for fantasy football here. Worse yet, I looked at the schedule and I think the Panthers only win 4 games this season. Panthers fans, are you optimistic about this season? Please tell me why. Damn. What a bummer. We can't end the show this way. We need something to help pick us back up again.
Frank Sinatra said it best. I did it my way, baby.
Huh. There it is. Thanks for watching Shut Up Football. We'll catch you next time. Peace!
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys. It sound right, boy.
My hair's looking kind of Top Gun-ish. Hey, bro, you fly? Hell yeah, I fly. And this...